A rattlesnake inside a coffin, underground. That's how Nate Jacobs' story actually ends in season 3. And look, I get it. When that scene played out, it was genuinely one of the most disturbing things we have ever seen on the show. The pitch black, the claustrophobia, that snake just sliding down the one single air pipe. But I haven't stopped thinking about it, and I realized something. What if that scene wasn't just meant to be disturbing? What if it was entirely inevitable? Because here's the reality of Nate Jacobs. Sam Levinson didn't just abruptly kill him off. He spent 3 full seasons building a watertight case against him. Every single choice Nate made, every person he broke, every lie he used as a foundation for his life, none of it just vanished. It collected. Quietly in the background, season by season, it collected. And at the end of the season 3, the bill finally came due. So we need to go back all the way to the pilot because I promise you, once you see the architecture of this, you are never going to unsee it. This is the karma of Nate Jacobs. Season 1, Episode 1. Rue is introducing us to Nate, and she throws in this line that most of us just completely brush past. She tells us Nate has never been in a real physical fight, mostly because people are too terrified to challenge him. But in his own head, he's fighting hundreds of them every single day. Just sit with that for a second. A guy who wages invisible, suffocating wars, battles that nobody else can see, that no one is watching. Hold on to that thought. Because look at how Nate dies. In a coffin pinned underground where literally no one is watching, where he is entirely unseen. The guy who has never truly seen for who he was, even when he held all the powers, ends his life in one place where he is completely permanently invisible. But it goes deeper. Think back to the Nate as a kid. He finds Cal's tape. He discovers his dad's darkest secret. And what is Cal's strategy for handling secrets? He buries them. He literally hides them underground, beneath the floorboard, where the light can't hit him. And young Nate just watches and he learns the lesson perfectly. Survival means burying the ugly stuff. Shame, identity, fear, you push it underground, you pack the dirt over it, and you keep walking. Nate spent his whole life mastering that lesson. The fake masculinity, the performance, the absolute grip he keeps on his environment, every bit of it is built on top of something buried. The issue is, you can only bury things for so long before they start clawing their way back up. Now, this is the part that genuinely gets me. In season 1, Nate fabricates an entire identity from scratch. You remember Tyler Clarkson? He catfishes Jules. He builds a fake name, a fake personality, a fake connection for one reason: to trap her, to mine her for evidence he can use to destroy her if he needs to. He is a man who constructs false identities specifically to lock other people in cage. Fast forward to season 3. Look at Nate Jacobs, the businessman, the husband, the real estate developer. The whole setup, that is the ultimate fake identity. It is a complete fabricated life, and that perfectly constructed life is exactly what gets him killed. He didn't stop being Tyler Clarkson. He just bought a more expensive costume. Then we have Maddie. Back in season 1, at the carnival, Nate physically wraps his hand around her throat. He takes complete control over whether or not she gets to breathe. He plays God with her oxygen. Keep that in your head, because in season 3, Nate is lying in a coffin. Underground, there is one single PVC pipe standing between him and a total suffocation. One tiny connection to the air above ground. He spends the first season deciding who deserved to breathe, and season 3 is the universe answering that exact question about him. And then there is one more detail. It is so quiet, so subtle that almost everyone missed it. During that brutal scene in season 2, where Nate confronts Maddie in her bedroom to get the CD back, there is a poster hanging on the wall right behind him, just glaring at the audience. It says, "Smile, you are on camera." Nate's entire arc revolves around weaponizing documentation. The tapes, the nudes, the leverage, everything in his world is about surveillance, recording, and storing ammunition. The man who constantly needed an audience, who desperately needed to be feared, watched, and validated, dies in a hole in the dirt where the cameras are off. No audience, no surveillance, the performance is just over. Let's pause here before we jump into season 2. There is a thematic thread running through the show that you have to understand. The framing of Nate Jacob has been heavily coded as a Lucifer since the very first episode. Think about it. He is the most dominant presence in any room. He commands fear. He is conveniently beautiful, magnetic, and completely violently corrupt. If you look at the biblical mythology, Lucifer falls, downward. He ends up ruling the underground and he corrupts the Garden of Eden using one very specific vessel, a snake. Keep that imagery locked in as we move forward, because by the time we hit season 3, Nate, our Lucifer figure, is literally shoved underground, killed by a snake on a piece of real estate that was designed to mimic Eden. That snake wasn't just sent to kill Nate. Thematically, that snake is Nate coming back to bite him. Now season 2, Cal Jacobs, the architect who molded Nate into monster he is, gets completely wasted. Comes home, pisses on his own 4th floor and blows his entire family dynamic up. In his own house, in front of his wife and kids, he just drops the mask and takes the family portrait and walks out the door. And people rarely talk about what this actually meant for Nate's psychology. Cal was his instruction manual, for better or worse. Nate was tracing Cal's line. How to fake it, how to assert dominance, how to survive when showing weakness isn't an option. And in the season 2, Cal just tosses the manual in the trash. Suddenly, Nate is trying to build a life without instructions. He has no idea how to function, a twisted version of his dad to emulate. So in season 3, he quite literally tries to become a builder, getting into a land development and construction, and it collapses catastrophically. Cal dug the hole for Nate's psychology grave in season 1. In season 2, he drops the shovel and leaves Nate to bury himself. Now we have to talk about the Cassie. The dynamic that ultimately cost Nate his entire life starts right here in season 2. In total secrecy, built 100% on Cassie completely betraying Maddie. Look, this was never a love story. This was two people using each other for parts. Cassie desperately needs to be picked over everyone else. Nate desperately needs someone who will submit to him without question. That is the entire bedrock of their relationship. By season 3, Cassie is his wife, and she is also the exact person whose hesitation, stalling over the $1 million ransom, is the reason he dies. Look at the poetry in the timing. The relationship that was literally birthed from Cassie betraying her best friend ends with the Cassie failing to save her husband. If you pour concrete over a betrayal, you can't act shocked when the building collapses on you. And then there's the gun. In season 2, Nate plays a Russian roulette with Maddie. He introduces terrifying lethal violence into his own narrative. He points a loaded then unloaded weapon at the person who loved him, traumatizing her just to reclaim a piece of leverage. The Euphoria universe is ruthlessly comic when it comes to this. Nate escalates to absolute suffocating terror in season 2, so season 3 brings that exact suffocating terror right back to him, except this time he's the one trapped in the dark with no way out. He raised the stakes himself and the universe just matched his bet. There's one thing from the season 2 that matters. Nate finally gives Maddie the tape back. The leverage he used to dictate her entire life, he just hands it over. It's probably the closest thing to decent act we have ever seen from him. But the devastating part, it changes absolutely nothing. Maddie is already leaving. Cassie is already collateral damage. Cal is already gone. Doing one decent thing that buzzer doesn't magically erase the towering architecture of the trauma you spent years building. And the last shot we get of Nate in season 2, he's walking away. From the play, from everyone. It mimics growth. It makes you think he's finally stepping away from the toxicity and trying to evolve. But look at where he's actually walking. Into a void. He has no foundation, no identity that doesn't rely on manipulating people. So in season 3, he takes a $1 million loan from a mobster to build a retirement home. That is where that big dramatic walk led him. He didn't actually escape, he just packed his self-destruction and moved it to a new zip code. Karma doesn't care about your last good deed. It looks at the total balance. So we hit season 3, and honestly, Nate is trying. New town, new project, sun settlers. He's laying down foundation, building houses. He's doing the exact performance people do when they desperately want a clean slate. But you really need to look at what he's actually building. A retirement community, a literal waiting room for the end of the life. Nate Jacobs spent his final arc constructing a space for people who are hovering near death, on the exact plot of the land that is going to become his grave. And who is bankrolling this? Naz. The guy funding the entire operation. Naz, whose actual empire, the money keeping Nate afloat, comes from manufacturing and selling coffins. Nate Jacob literally signed a contract with a coffin maker. He took out a $1 million loan from Death, and Death, right on schedule, came to collect. Then the project hits a wall, but it's not the cops, it's not Fez getting revenge, it's not Maddie finally ruining him, it's nobody from his past. It is an endangered flower. They find a protected white fritillary plant on the development site. One tiny, delicate, fragile thing, and it hulls the entire empire. The $1 million debt becomes a ticking clock, and the trap snaps shut. Nat spent his whole existence being the apex predator in the room. He manipulated outcomes. He bullied people into submission, but he cannot bully a flower. Nature itself literally rejects the foundation he's trying to pour. And look at the wedding. The aesthetic of Nate and Cassie's wedding is drowning in Eden imagery. The lush green, the garden setting, the gold lighting, it is Eden. Nate, playing the role of Lucifer, is standing at the altar of Eden, claiming his Eve. The snake is already in that garden. It is already coiling up in the background. We just don't know what it looks like yet. This is the sequence that genuinely floored me. Before the end, Nash severs Nate's ring finger. Not the index, not the pinky, the ring finger. The physical symbol of his vow. The exact finger tying him to his marriage with Cassie. Cassie gets it in the mail. She is handed the literal flesh and blood proof of her marriage, chopped off her husband's hand, delivered right into her doorstep. And she still hesitates. The relationship that doomed him physically sends her a piece of him, and it still isn't enough to make her move fast enough. Which brings us right back to the dot, the coffin, the pipe. That one PVC tube, it is the only thing linking Nate to the world of the living. It is his one lifeline, the exact mechanism designed to keep him breathing. And it is the exact pathway the snake uses to get to him. The rattlesnake doesn't chew through the pine box. It doesn't break the rules. It literally uses the one thing that was meant to save Nate, to kill him. Now I want you to step back and look at the whole boat. Look at every lifeline Nate Jacobs ever clung to. Cal's version of masculinity, the only blueprint he had, rotted his brain. His obsession with control isolated him entirely. Maddie's love turned into his favorite weapon. Cassie's devotion became his literal death sentence, and the air pipe delivered the snake. Every single lifeline turned into a noose. Because that is the brutal reality of how karma functions. It rarely kicks down the front door. It usually sneaks through the back door you left unlocked. It uses the relationship you exploited and the identities you faked. Nate didn't die just because a rattlesnake happened to drop into his coffin. Nate died because he spent 3 seasons throwing snakes into everyone else. A guy who decides when women get to breathe dies gasping of air. A guy who plays a fake character to trap people gets trapped inside a fake life. And a guy who signs a deal with a coffin maker, he gets a coffin. Sam Levinson didn't write Nate's death in season 3. Season 1 wrote it. That rattlesnake wasn't a bad luck. It was just a receipt.